Can you kill a man with a baseball without hitting them? We don't know how, but this ball did. In fact, this ball looks like it came straight out of one of those viral foil polishing challenges, and it was never even touched. In the depths of Los Alamos National Laboratory, the only thing keeping Louis Slotin and his colleagues safe from a horrible death was a flat screwdriver, wedged between a reflective covering that encased 14 pounds of plutonium in a sphere smaller than a baseball. If the casing closed, the radiation released will attack their body on a molecular level, which means they would literally burn from the inside. Louis had done this experiment 100 times, but on the fateful day of May 12, 1946, they were faced with the wrath of the Demon Core. What went wrong? Why was a seemingly shiny, pretty ball so deadly? And what was so demonic about it? The Demon Core was the third nuke on standby to be dropped on Japan during World War II. The US had developed this beast as a part of the Manhattan Project that led research on nuclear weapons. After Fat Man and Little Boy obliterated Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan surrendered, and that seemed like the end of Rufus. What's Rufus, you ask? The Demon Core was originally named Rufus, which sounds like a name Daenerys would give to her socially awkward fourth dragon. Rufus was sent to Los Alamos for research, but there it claimed the lives of 2 scientists and caused radiation poisoning to several others. But what kind of transition do you have to go through to go from Rufus to a raging ball of radiation capable of releasing 23 kilotons of TNT? And do you know what 23 kilotons of TNT can do? Take out the entirety of 5 boroughs of New York in one boom! Time to get a little technical. We're no physicists, but the boss asked for it, so here it goes. Chemistry lessons were probably shorter before the 1940s because the periodic table stopped at the number 92, uranium, until the Dragon Lady showed up. Lise MEITNER was an Austrian physicist who was responsible for the discovery of the element protactinium and nuclear fission. In fact, it was MEITNER and OTTO HAHN who coined the term fission based on the biological process of division of cells. Their discoveries got them an offer at the Manhattan Project. While MEITNER declined and said, quote, "I will have nothing to do with the bomb," unquote, her colleagues continued experimentation. Little did she know that her contribution to the field of science would become the doorway for the demon's release. The risk was so high that physicist Richard FEYNMAN famously called it tickling the dragon's tail. Let us get into how the Demon Core straight up Dracarys everything.
Dracarys.
No, don't get scared with all the science-y stuff. We are here to make it easier. In nuclear physics, critical mass is the smallest amount of fissile material needed for a sustained nuclear chain reaction. This simply means that if an object reaches critical mass or becomes supercritical, some really bad things are going to happen. Like King's Landing in the final season of Game of Thrones bad. Oops, spoilers. This concept is important for making nuclear bombs. The bomb must go supercritical when you detonate, or else it won't explode. So, the bombs were made very close to criticality, which obviously made them very dangerous to work with. Rufus here was designed to be just 5% below critical mass. So, the safety margin is as small as the Avengers' chance to win against Thanos. It is this critical mass that was being tested at the Manhattan Project in Los Alamos National Laboratory. Yeah, sounds like a death wish, but hey, anything for science. To make the core reach a critical point, reactors are placed around it. And you then measure how much you can piss Rufus off before he goes supercritical. The reflectors worked like mirrors that would reflect neurons back into the core, creating a self-sustaining reaction. It may not necessarily explode, but it will most certainly release a deadly blast of radiation. On the night of August 1945 in Los Alamos, a young scientist, Harry Dalian, went back home after a long day's work. But for some reason, after dinner, he went back to the laboratory all alone. There he conducted a criticality experiment by stacking tungsten carbide bricks around the core. You'd imagine him wearing a hazmat suit or at least gloves for protection, but for whatever reason, he was doing it with his bare hands. Just as he was about to put the final brick over the core, the neutron counters alerted Dalian that the brick would lead to supercriticality. This prompted him to pull the brick away, but his worst fear came to life. He dropped the brick onto the core. That's right, our anxiety levels shot up too. The moment the brick touched the demon core, a bright blue light was emitted and a wave of heat was released. Dalian immediately removed the brick to stop the reaction. The incident must have lasted all of 5 seconds, but it was enough to give him a dose of 510 REM of neutron radiation, a lethal dose. Over the next 25 days, he developed severe symptoms of radiation poisoning. The hand he used to remove the brick was blistered and burned over time. He died 16 days after this photo was taken. After this incident, criticality experiments went through several changes, and many precautionary measures were also added. But has the dragon ever been tamed? Its next victim was Louis Slotin. Dalian was Slotin's colleague, but the accident did not seem to change his ways. He was one of those chill scientists who actually wore blue jeans and cowboy boots during experiments. Here's Slotin with a gadget bomb in his beachwear. Slotin conducted his experiments with bare hands. Again, with the bare hands, come on! Now, coming back to the bomb, the core is placed in a beryllium hemisphere, while the second hemisphere is lowered onto the core manually. Ideally, shims were placed between the hemispheres to allow the neutrons to escape, but Slotin, being the badass, used the blade of a screwdriver to create an opening. Rufus was not one to be underestimated, and this lesson was learned the hard way. On May 21st, 1946, Slotin and 7 other colleagues conducted this experiment. As he lowered the hemisphere at exactly 3:20 p.m., the screwdriver slipped, causing a prompt critical reaction. A burst of hard radiation happened, and there was a blue glow. Slotin pushed the upper hemisphere away immediately, but it was too late. Icarus flew too close to the sun. In those few seconds, Louis Slotin was exposed to possibly over 1,000 rads of radiation. In Hiroshima, 1,000 meters from ground zero had only 400 rads of neutron radiation. Over the next 4 days, he felt the agonizing effects of radiation: intense diarrhea, swollen hands, erythema. His internal burns were so severe, they were described as a 3-dimensional sunburn, and on May 30th, he died. 4 out of the 7 exposed were discharged from the hospital shortly after the incident, but Alvin Graves, who was standing closest to Slotin, suffered severe neurological and vision problems. The rest died many years later of conditions that are known to be prompted from radiation. And with this, Rufus then came to be known as the Demon Core. Finally, owing to these incidents, all hands-on criticality experiments were stopped. And one of the survivors designed remote-controlled machines to perform these experiments, while all the scientists can observe from a mile's distance through cameras. As for the Demon Core, it was melted down and used in other cores. Slotin and Dalian are considered pioneers by some and reckless scientists by others. The Demon Core, however, is feared by all. What do you think? Could these accidents have been avoided? Or were they a necessary evil to improve human caution? Let us know in the comments below if you can think of more nuclear disasters waiting to happen, and we might just make a video about it. If you enjoyed this video, leave a huge thumbs up for us, and we'll see you in the next video.